A new face has entered the fray for the Indiana Hoosiers basketball team. As it certainly seems like Wichita State forward Dexter Dennis, who is in the transfer portal, could be a Hoosier soon enough. We'll look at his situation as he's set for a visit to Bloomington next week, as well as what this means for the Hoosiers before continuing our individual season recaps, all in today's episode.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? It is Thursday, April 14th. This, as always, is Locked On Hoosiers, your daily source for everything IU athletics, news, analysis, previews, recaps. We have you guys covered here with everything related to IU athletics. I'm your host, as always, Jacob Rude. Want to thank you guys for stopping in today and making Locked On Hoosiers part of your day, specifically your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props and odds and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. As I mentioned, sounds like the Hoosiers could potentially be front runners for a wing in the transfer portal. We'll dive into Dexter Dennis, his career at Wichita State, and why the Hoosiers are targeting him in just a moment. First, though, as always, you guys can subscribe to Locked On Hoosiers wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at LO_Hoosiers or on Instagram at Locked On Hoosiers. Dexter Dennis, a name that perhaps many IU fans had not heard of before Wednesday, came out that he would be taking an official visit to Indiana next week. Certainly seems like the Hoosiers might be one of the front runners for to land Dennis in the transfer portal. Arkansas, Virginia, Texas A&M, among the other schools that are in on Dennis. It's an interesting name because it is not one that anybody really thought about, but his accolades are, he was a defensive player of the year in the AAC for Wichita State last season. Like, you don't get much better than that defensively when it comes to your conference, at least. 6'5", 210-pound guard. Peegs had the story on him with a quote from an AAC coach. Quote, "You're not going to see many defenders tougher than he is on wings." That's important because while he is only a 34.4% three-point shooter whose numbers have been trending downward through his college career, what he does bring to the team is defensive ability on the wing. And I know that myself, many others have talked about the need for shooters in the transfer portal and the recruiting trail. And that is true. Indiana does need shooting. It's not to say that this isn't a need for this team as well. When Dustin DePirac came on, he talked about Indiana not having a wing defender, a wing type player. It's something we discussed throughout the season. Trey Galloway tried to be that. He's more of a kind of a guard defender, got a little overpowered, oversized by some of those wings. Dexter Dennis is that type of player. He's the type of guy you can put on some of those wings that won't create some of the matchup problems that it did for IU at times last season. It wasn't as pronounced a problem, and it may not be priority number one for the Hoosiers, but getting him does solve or help solve the issue the team had defending wings last season. That was something that became a lot more of an issue into tournament time when you start playing these really good teams. You saw it in that Wyoming game IU just didn't really have the type of player that could match up with Hunter Maldonado. And while he had a really rough night, they were throwing lots of players, lots of different type of people at him. Dennis is the type of guy you can say you're on Maldonado tonight, and he can match up with him a little bit better. So an intriguing name. Now, like I said, doesn't shoot the ball well from three, or at least he didn't last season. Last year, a 29.7% three-point shooter. That number, his freshman year, he shot 40% from three, 33.6% each of the next 2 years, 29% last season. That is a number obviously trending in the wrong direction and does not help Indiana's issues out shooting on the outside. But listen, there isn't like this perfect player that's a 3-and-D wing that can defend at a high level, shoot at a high level, and solve all of Indiana's problems just like that. And if there were, he'd be coveted by so many programs that it'd be hard for Indiana to even find him. So this does solve an issue that the Hoosiers did have last season. Now, what does it mean for Indiana? We know they have basically one extra scholarship open right now. When you account for the 3 incoming freshmen, there is one open scholarship. Now, we also said before that based on what it sounded like, as long as Malik Renault had not made his decision, the Hoosiers are going to have an open scholarship spot for him. I don't know if I don't think this is any kind of indication that Race Thompson has made a decision, or Trace, or anything like that. I think this is simply a player available that improves Indiana next season that they are targeting. And you can't really – college basketball is kind of this juggling act of, especially right now with the transfer portal, of figuring out who you go after, who you wait on, things of that nature. So I'm not reading too much into them going after him, other than he's somebody that's going to improve this team next season. I don't think it means anybody's staying, anybody's going. I just think it's somebody Mike Woodson targeted that addresses a weakness for this team. So we will certainly have more on him when he makes that visit next week. Listen, I wouldn't be stunned if he makes that visit and commits to Indiana based on what it sounds like, but that might be putting the cart before the horse right now. Certainly seems like IU's in a good spot with him. And again, I can't stress enough, I saw a lot of reactions that this isn't the shooter they needed. This could force somebody out. All of that stuff is a lot of what ifs and kind of reading down the line. Right now, Indiana has open roster spots, and they are going to go after a player that improves the team, and that is what Dexter Dennis does. Now, let's dive into the women's basketball team and do our latest individual season recap on Keondra Brown, another member of the bench unit that wasn't big in terms of quantity, but was big in terms of quality last season. First, though, guys, our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health. So what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals as well, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. They all help you start your day off right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and aging. It does literally everything for you guys, all with one single scoop. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, no matter what it is, this works for you. It contains less than a gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything. And it still tastes good, which is always the biggest challenge with a lot of these types of products. Supports better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. It's a one thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. The best part is it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's cheaper than you getting all those different supplements yourself as well. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/college. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/college to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thanks for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. Now for a big announcement we've been promoting all week. Starting on Thursday, April 28th, tune into the Locked On NFL Draft's live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft with all 3 days of real-time analysis from our extensive lineup of experts and insiders. For those of you dying to know who your team will take, catch Odyssey and Locked On's NFL Mock Draft Special, hosted by Brian Peacock and former scout Matt Williamson. Those guys are on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. They'll be there all week leading up to the first pick. So head on over to the Locked On NFL Draft YouTube page. Subscribe over there for the live show. Head on over to the Locked On NFL Draft podcast feed as well as Odyssey for the NFL Mock Draft. They will carry you through all 3 days of the NFL Draft. 7 o'clock on night 1, 6:30 on night 2, 11:30 a.m. on day 3. They will have you guys covered. Speaking of football, we'll discuss. Spring game is on Saturday. I know we haven't talked hardly any football. I know it's not always fun to talk IU football, but it is a spring game, kind of a culmination of spring practice, or give you your first look after spring practice maybe of the team. And there's a lot of questions on this team. Speaking of football, I was on the Locked On Big Ten podcast for Thursday. We talked about football. We talked about the FPI rankings or ratings released by ESPN, how the Big Ten shaked out. Very interesting data is how I will say. So I joined Nate Dickinson. We're always going to be over there on Thursdays. You guys can check us out. We also talked a lot about Trace Jackson Davis declaring, I should say, for the NBA draft. So a lot of IU related stuff going on over at Locked On Big Ten. Let's dive into Keondra Brown's season. Even early in the year, when IU didn't really trust its bench, Keondra Brown was one of the few players that had experience and that was productive from day one on that bench. If you look at the first game of the season, that was her season high scoring output, was the 10 points she scored against Butler in that opening game of the year. And she's the type of player that you can rely upon. She's not going to put up any kind of gaudy stats. And even when Mackenzie Holmes went down, she obviously stepped up in terms of minutes, but not necessarily in terms of stats. She's just a quality backup big. And that's really what IU needs with Mackenzie Holmes, is someone who can come in, get you 10, 12, 14, 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more if she's got it going on that night, and spot Mackenzie Holmes so that she doesn't get worn down. And that's exactly what she was through the first half of the season. She had a couple games where played a little bit more, but outside of that Butler game, she played 17 minutes in that one. She never played more than 15 minutes through the non-conference schedule. And for example, that Maryland game, she only plays 7 minutes. You're going to rely more on your stars for that one. Only plays 14 against Wisconsin, but then Mackenzie Holmes goes down and those minutes shoot right up. 24 minutes against Nebraska, 28 minutes against Purdue. That was probably her next best game of the season. 8 points and 4 rebounds in that comeback win against Purdue. And her minutes went up. 30 minutes against Michigan State. at home was her highest mark of the season. 24 against Illinois, 22 against Nebraska in that loss. But numbers went, or her minutes started to go down a bit as Mackenzie Holmes came back. And late in the season, she aggravated a hip injury that she had surgery on the previous offseason, which really, really, really limited how much she was able to even get on the court down the stretch in the tournament. Only 2 minutes against Iowa in the first game. Iowa is not a great matchup for her between how fast they play and how good Sonano is. She fouled out of the second game, Brown did, against Sonano. So that wasn't a great matchup for her. I believe it was in that Maryland game that she aggravated the injury. She was only available in one Big Ten tournament game, and it was against Iowa in the championship game. And she only played 2 minutes, so she was barely available for that. She played in 2 of the NCAA tournament games, 6 minutes against Charlotte, and then 4 minutes against UConn. Having her available helps with the depth. I don't think it necessarily changed any of those games where she wasn't available in. I don't think she was necessarily going to be the difference against Iowa in the Big Ten tournament, in the UConn game as well. But that doesn't mean she wasn't valuable. You need players who can eat up minutes and be productive players and know the system and know what you need to do. And that's exactly the type of player Keondra Brown was. So it wasn't a particularly gaudy season. 2.9 rebounds, or 2.9 points, 3.2 rebounds, shot just under 60% from the field, but that's all you need her to be. A 6'2 sophomore that is able to bang with bodies down low, and somebody who's still learning. None of this is to say she can't become something better than that, and perhaps she can have a bigger role in the team next season, as there are minutes that are going to be opened up with Alexa Golby departing and joining the Connecticut Sun. So we'll look at, is she going to be a starter next season? There could be an argument for it, and what type of role she could have with this team. BetOnline.net, though, is your number one source for all your sports betting stats and info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. You guys have the playing games the next 2 nights. 3 of the 4 have been kind of duds so far, but I think each of these next 2 are going to be really exciting ones. So BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So what role is Keondra Brown going to have next season? It's an interesting question that I don't know that we'd know. If I had to guess, I do not think she will start, though she is listed as a forward on the team, and there is an opening at forward. Alexa Gulbe's spot is open, and that's the one perhaps that is most open of any of the starting lineup spots, because I think the backcourt is pretty well known that it's going to be Scalia, Berger, Parrish, and I think the center position is obviously going to be Mackenzie Holmes. IU can go bigger potentially with Keondra Brown. That mainly works if Holmes is able to develop more of an outside shot, I think, and you're able to play her a little bit more outside, but I don't think you want to pull her away from the basket too much, which is why I think Keondra Brown still might come off the bench. But that, again, doesn't mean she's not going to be an important player, and I wouldn't be surprised if she took a step forward this season. If she's able to get healthy, which is maybe a big if she's having hip issues after already having surgery on her hip. It's not ideal. I don't know the extent of it, but you certainly hope she's able to get that under control this offseason. And then if you're able to do that, she's going to have a role in this team because, as we've said, there's no Gulbe. The front court is a little thin. It's not the deepest position IU has. and that was the case last season. So there's going to be minutes to had if she can develop a 3-point shot, which she showed. Like, that wasn't even really an option for her. She attempted 4 threes all year. If she could do that, it would give her more minutes, but seems more likely that that's not going to happen. So her minutes are going to come in the post, and it's hard to play two post players together with Holmes and her, and Holmes is the better player. So that's why it's unclear how you use her. And it's also why I think she probably won't start. But we don't really know. That other forward spot is completely open, and I'm sure she's heading into this offseason vying for that spot. She's going to try to get it. So whether she starts, whether she comes off the bench, she's someone that is going to bring over 50 games of experience. We saw what she was able to do this season, hold down the fort. You would hope that she's able to take a step forward from just simply holding down the fort to being a scoring option in the post off the bench next season, build on those 3 points per game and 3 rebounds per game and become a little bit more of a threat. But we'll see how the Hoosiers handle that. But she's going to be a factor next season. She played 13.2 minutes per game last year. I wouldn't be surprised if that number went up even a little bit more this season, even with Holmes available, and even with that number inflated by the start she got during the season, during Holmes's injury. I wouldn't be surprised if that number goes up a little bit more. But we'll see what type of role she has. She's going to have the opportunity to step into an even bigger role this season. It's going to be a competition for that last forward spot, I think, but we'll certainly see. No matter what, as I've said, she's going to have a role with this team. Thank you guys for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every single day, and specifically today. We'll be back tomorrow to preview the spring game and talk about Tamar Bates' season, the 5-star freshman. Little bit of up and down season. We'll talk about some of those highs, some of those lows, and he could be in store for a big sophomore season next year. So we'll talk about that as well. Now, make your second listen the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Appreciate all the love that you guys continue to show us. Follow us on Twitter at LO_Hoosiers. Subscribe on wherever you're listening to us at. Subscribe, leave a rating if you're able to. Those help us out immensely. Most importantly, though, guys, I want you all to have a terrific, terrific Thursday. And LEO.